Starting. Okay. Hey, everybody. We're here. We're sorry that we're a little bit late, but everybody's here and we're ready to get our panel going. The panel today is learning how to travel to destinations that might be a little bit more unstable. And so we're finding solid ground when traveling to unstable destinations. And today we have Michael Becker from GeoSure, we have Sophia Heider from Papelia, and they're going to be talking a little bit about how to learn more about a place and find out the real safety issues behind that place and how best to visit.
Great.
All right, excellent. So if we could maybe have you guys introduce yourselves and talk a little bit more about your specialties, your expertise, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Sure. Sophia, sure. You wanna start?
Sure, I can. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining this panel. So my background is international development work, and I've been doing that for about 15 plus years. And to be able to do that kind of work, I've been placed in some very precarious situations and in a lot of what people would call unstable countries. Leave it at that, since I know that we may be short on time, but that on this panel right now that I'm really excited about. So again, thank you for having me.
Great.
Excellent, thank you. All right.
Well, Claire, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity to participate today. And just by way of a quick background, so GeoSure is a startup in the global travel safety information space. What we do is quantify and measure safety, not to the country level or to the city level, but to the neighborhood level. And we're simply trying to create contextual information through a numerical system to help understand what safety looks like everywhere around the world. We think of ourselves as an enabler, as a complementer to the travel ecosystem. We're a partner for the travel industry. Our goals really are to we believe that destination awareness and understanding can enrich and expand every dimension of the travel experience. So we're trying to encourage people to travel and encourage smart, informed, safe, engaged awareness as it relates to travel, and to get people on airplanes and booking holidays. Just be cognizant of your surroundings, and we're doing that. We're delivering that through a sort of a metric system, or what we call a geolocation quantification system, if you will.
Wow, very cool. Excellent. Oh, thank you both for being here. I'm so excited to be learning more about this topic. And so I guess starting with our first question, let's define the term unstable first before we kind of jump into things. When you guys hear the word unstable destination, or when you think about destinations that might be harder to travel through, what comes to mind?
I take this one first, Michael.
Sure. So we look at, but by the way, I think unstable is a good expression. People look at safety and risk and stability in a lot of different ways, and it means a lot of different things to different people. I think unstable or stable is an appropriate way to frame the expression. Unstable can mean anything from it could be health related risks, medical disease. An example of Ebola comes to mind a couple of years ago in West Africa. Zika comes to mind more recently in the Caribbean and parts of Latin America. Then of course there are more physically oriented events that have occurred around the world, and but also I think it extends to less familiar countries and regions and even cities. I'll use an example of Papua New Guinea. which is really a unique place. But it's off the mainstream. It's not a high density, highly populated travel destination, if you will. But that doesn't mean that a traveler should not go to Papua New Guinea or anywhere in the world. It's we just look at it as sort of one should, as a traveler, and I've spent a lot of years going around the world, looking at destinations and locations as it relates to sort of a safety and stability prism, just have an understanding. So the unstable locations can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But I think if you have an understanding of how a location may relate, that gives you a better framework in which to make travel decisions. Now, there are obvious hotspots around the world, right? In parts of the Middle East, war zones, so on and so forth, and that absolutely should be avoided. But that cannot be traveled to, or one shouldn't attempt to travel there. But for a very wide portion of the world, I think there's a difference in the perception and the reality of what may be defined as stable or unstable. So it's kind of a long-winded way of responding to that question. But we as a safety information provider, we look at a lot of different factors to sort of gauge stability, and we're trying to help to measure that element, if you will.
Awesome. I can also give my my perspective from a development point of view. A lot of what you said, Michael, is very similar to how I would characterize instability. Right off the top of people think about unstable as political instability, transitional countries are going through transition. Those are affected by consistent acts of terrorism and some form of trafficking, whether it be drug trafficking or human trafficking. But health is also another big consideration. So with the countries that I've worked in, it's usually a form of economic instability, political instability, health concerns. So a lot of what you've said is very much similar from the development perspective.
Right.
Excellent. Wonderful. And so, yeah, I would like to talk about maybe some specific places where maybe it sounded from the outset that things were more dangerous, maybe more risky, coming from, hearing things here in the United States, maybe from news sources, maybe from, different resources that are telling us, don't go here. And then you go and it's like, there really wasn't that big of an issue for travelers. And so I'd like to hear some specific examples where destinations really surprised you as how safe they really were. And I know, Sophia, you're worried about time. Our next session isn't until noon, and so we do have some time. We can make up that 15 minutes that we lost.
Okay.
Do you want to start on that, Sophia?
Sure, I can start there. So I know so I have a lot of different countries and cities that I've written down. So I think there are two different distinctions. One is judging a country on the whole of being unsafe, and then there's the specific city within a country that could also be deemed unstable. So I have one recent example where not many travelers go, but it's Bangladesh. And I was there in December. There was a attack last June that happened, and since then it's been deemed as an unstable country and a risky country to go to. But going there and talking to local people and working in that country, everything is under watch, like any country should be, but things were fine. And it's just the heightened sense of security, the heightened risk and things that we hear on the news, at least with respect to Bangladesh, as one example. Another being Cape Town as a city. I used to live there, and I just read about it the other day, as listed as one of the most dangerous cities to go to, and it's not. Certain places in Cape Town are, but again, it's a matter of being aware of where you're going, being smart about where you travel, and learning about the culture before you go, so you know places that you shouldn't be. But Cape Town is a perfectly safe and a great place to go to. So those are two examples of a country and a city.
Right. I completely agree. In fact, I was in Cape Town last year about this time, and there's a reputation, but the reality may be quite a bit different. But just in my personal experience, I've been to some of the sort of what I would call sort of off the radar countries and areas around the world. Papua New Guinea happens to be one, and there's a bit of sort of a perception, perhaps a reputation, and a lot of times people have no idea where Papua New Guinea is. It's in the middle of the Pacific, but it's there have been incidences in events but it's a perfectly my experience was fantastic. I met a lot of people in a lot of different settings and environments, in urban areas and in not very non-urban areas, and jungle settings. I think it's about understanding. Sophia, is your in a complete alignment. It's about having awareness, planning in advance, and just diligencing as much information as possible. Tajikistan, I was actually there a few years ago, and there were you see a lot of military installations, a lot of military activity. There were absolutely no issues whatsoever. I was in Western Mongolia a few years ago, in an area that had again some events and issues, but our personal experience was absolutely fine. It was wonderful. It was one of the most enriching travel experiences that I've ever had. And so I think it's really about the difference between sort of this perception and reality. And when you land on the ground, wherever you may be, in my experience, we found that it's completely different than what you may hear or read about. Now that's not to say that you don't want to be an uninformed traveler and be unaware, oblivious to sort of situational awareness. It's always smart to know what you're going into, but again, I think my personal experience has just been very rewarding to go to places that are a little bit off the radar, so to speak.
Right. And I'd like to add to that. I mean, Pakistan, it always right now, especially, in the past few years, has gotten a lot of travel warnings for things that have been going on there. And I was in the Afghanistan-Pakistan border, near Peshawar. And again, it's when you talk to the people and you learn about that culture and you are aware and you're safe of what your surroundings are like, it was one of the most amazing experiences working there for me. Right. So what you've said, I mean, right. Being aware of surroundings and not being oblivious.
Right. Exactly.
Excellent, wonderful. And your stories are reminding me of, I traveled to Kenya for a week for a conference back in 2013. And I arrived the day of the National Mall bombing, that attack that happened that day. And so when I got to my hotel, there were armed guards. They were very friendly. They'd smile. They'd say "Jumbo," but they had these huge guns. And, we were told, please don't leave the hotel during this time, stay in your rooms, just be very, very careful. And it was really interesting watching the news because there were several local stations that were covering, what was happening. And then there was a CNN channel that was being, fed to the United States. And what was interesting is that all the local channels were showing different streets, different views, and you had, lots of soldiers, people going in. But then CNN had a picture of, a tank sitting in the middle of the road and just made it look so much more dramatic than the actual scene. And so I was just kind of thinking, how much are we seeing back home that is, so much more dramatic than what is actually happening. And after those few days, it was safe again to go out and explore and see Nairobi, see the country. But yeah, I mean, those few days were very tense. I didn't feel exactly 100% safe, but I felt a lot safer, and I still would have gone even if I had known what was happening. And so I just felt very taken care of as a traveler, and I know that is often the experience.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, Claire. That I was talking to a journalist in the travel ecosystem. He's pretty well known, and he was actually in Nairobi during the Westgate event, which obviously was a horrible event. But he was describing sort of this perception and Western media coverage that is completely different. His experience was he said it was business as usual 2 blocks away. Now, this is not in any way to diminish the event, the severity, the horrible nature of what occurred, but these things have a radius, right? They have a geographic boundary, and does it create does it disallow one to go anywhere outside of that boundary? No. The whole country is in a red zone. Yeah, sure, there have been bad things that have happened, but the whole country, it doesn't render the whole country a red zone, and that's really what I think we're all hearing here, and what we're certainly doing is trying to create sort of this global view, and then this very granular view. Anywhere in the world, you can point to difficult, troubled, awkward areas that may in fact be dangerous. But if you know about those areas, don't go to those areas. But it doesn't mean you can't go to that city or that country or the whole region. So I think I completely am aligned and appreciate what you're saying.
Excellent. So moving on, why is it important to visit these places that might be having more trouble, that might be a little bit more unstable? What is the impact of traveling to those places?
Sophia, you want to start?
Sure, I can. Well, it's interesting. I think it goes along with what we've just talked about, how there's a perception of what the instability and a dangerous country or city may be, when in reality, it's not as bad. And the culture and curiosity, it's important to still go to. I think it's important to continue traveling and be aware of those places before you travel, like anywhere else. So just because you hear something on the news doesn't mean that you should just say, I'm not going to Venezuela anymore because of the many things that are going on there right now. It's still keeping the culture and your curiosity for culture alive, and being open-minded to the fact that the local traditions are still thriving there. And if you go there, entrepreneurs are still the same authentic experience. And there's still local economic development that's trying to go on. And you're still going to get that level of culture, if not even, it may be even more authentic. But it goes back to culture, curiosity, and triangulating your resources and your information to make sure that the places that you may deem risky, like we have been talking about, may not be that risky.
Right. And I think I agree with everything you're saying, Sophie. I think in our view, sure, there are regions around the world that have had events. Just be informed, be aware. But the reasons to go there are to, you sort of limit yourself if you check off a country or a city, or even a whole region, because of publicized events. You miss out as a traveler. You miss a lot of the experience, the richness, and in the case of what we're trying to accomplish is really it's very important for us to support tourism economies, to support local economies, to support jobs, and to keep I think on average, there about 1 in 10 people globally are employed in some way. They touch the travel ecosystem, so it's a very important job provider. It's a very important component of country level and city level GDP. And to, again, just to eliminate offhand because of an event that has occurred, not only as an individual or as a group of travelers, do you miss that? But it's important to support some of these smaller countries that do rely heavily on tourism and the travel ecosystem. So that's really one of the things that we're trying to do, is to help encourage, to inspire, to engage, and to really support tourism economies as much as possible through, again, smart, informed, aware travel.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And so I'd like to kind of dive into the how to research a place that may be more unstable. What are some things that you guys do before you even start the planning process? How do you prepare for a place that might be a little bit more of a risk in some cases?
Sure. There are many sources of information, from websites, travel blogs. There are government sources. There are commercial providers. I do think it's important to point out in today's environment, it makes sense for travelers to diligence locations, destinations that they're planning on going to, and there are a lot of very simple, inexpensive ways to do that. But I do believe in that it's sensible to plan as much as possible for several different reasons and on several different levels. I think in also, if you can do some research on in your home country on a destination, that's wonderful. And if you can also do some homework to get a perspective from people sort of on the ground, or from the local viewpoint, is vital, and that can be done in a lot of different ways. But to have a 360-degree understanding really helps you as a traveler, and it is a great way to prepare, and as well understand safety while you're there. But I'm especially keen, fond of the idea of getting another viewpoint, not just someone who's sitting in New York City or in the United States of America, getting a local perspective. I think that can be very helpful and enriching to travelers.
I usually treat going to a dangerous place, honestly, like any other place. I usually get really excited because I think my mind, I've always had a development perspective. So any place is just exciting. And I'll look at, I start talking to, I triangulate all of my information. So I'll talk to friends that have been there. I will reach out to local folks, either through friends of friends. I'll try to find at least one connection if I can. I like to read a local newspaper and look at local articles to understand what the political environment is like, the social scene is like. And if it's available, what I try to do, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay. What I do is I do go to like the State Department site just to get an overall understanding, but I'll the CDC in the U.S. at least of health. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I can hear you. It's that commercial. But I try to go to like the CDC health sites to make sure that I have my proper immunizations and shots as need be. And then I, old-fashioned Google just to understand different perspectives. But to me, it doesn't matter if it's a dangerous place or a safe place. It's just about triangulating the information to make sure that I'm prepared. So again, local newspapers, local articles, bloggers, like you were saying, health websites, State Department, and the other source of information, or it can be social media too, Facebook groups, travel Facebook groups. If you're on there, you could ask for specific information.
Yeah, those are great resources. Thank you. We did just get a question from Speck on the Globe. So asking, what are some good ways to convince family and friends and the people around you to alter their misconceptions about places and maybe inspire them to get out there and see more of the world?
Well, I could start on that. I don't know that I have the right answer or anything that's workable. It is difficult. There is a perception, and those perceptions can be entrenched. And again, if you're watching CNN, or you're only reading, and I don't mean to, I'm not picking on CNN, but Western media resources, if you're only using State Department or FCO travel advisories and information, there's a lot of material out there that will be dissuading, and so to try to convince someone that you're going to be 100% safe. First of all, there's no place in the world, New York City, San Francisco, Chicago, the U.S., there's no guarantee of any assurance of safety anywhere. Now, the chances are infinitesimal that something untoward is going to happen, or you're going to be caught up in an event, as what it might be defined. But I think just an understanding, a broader awareness of trying to gather information from a variety of different sources and really incorporate all of those sources into your materials. You shouldn't not look at government websites or government sources. Read that, but incorporate that and try to put it in a perspective that, again, the perception may be a little bit different from the reality on the ground. If you really want to convince someone, in my view, talk to people on the ground. And you can do that in many different ways. There are crowdsourcing capabilities. There's social media, as Sophia pointed out. There's you can even do your own deep dive research by contacting the local travel ecosystems, DMOs. But if someone is so, I never would really want to convince someone to a point where you're forcing them, but just creating as much exposure and providing as many resources as possible. You want that person to really have the enriched experience of traveling to a destination that may be a little bit different than the traditional London, Paris, Rome sort of spots around the world. And I think it's absolutely well worth it. So just gather as much information and diligence as much as you can. That would be my thought.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. And I agree with all of what you're saying. And I have to add that I always get that "you're going where?" question a lot. And I always like to say or send pictures and just to say, see, this is what it's really like, whenever I'm going somewhere. If someone doesn't, they're not sure about it, or I'll take time to listen to what their concerns are, and maybe tell them my perspective, and talk about my stories about it. And I think that once somebody asks you that question, and you either show them a picture or just show them your perspective, they're more attuned to picking up on so like it's if into wanting to explore. So you know how you always someone tells you something, and then you'll start hearing that throughout the week or the day, and you're like, I never thought about this before. It kind of brings that topic to up to their mindset, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, Sophie. I might add, you touched on something it's kind of close to my heart. Exploration is part of my DNA. Adventure is part of my DNA, and one of our taglines is take the adventure, leave the risk. And all that really means is, yes, be informed, be smart, be safe, be have understanding, but don't miss out on an adventure opportunity. Now, I'm just speaking from my personal experience, and this is who I am. I seek out adventure, and I love going to places that are off the proverbial radar, and trying to convince someone to go to let's say someplace in Latin America or Central America or the Middle East. Sure, there again, it goes back to absolutely there are places that you want to avoid. There's certain areas at certain times of day, right after dark, that you want to avoid. But Cape Town was one of the most beautiful cities I've been to in Africa. I felt I couldn't have had a more enriching experience, meeting wonderful people, and not once did I even think about it. It's sort of safety consideration. I'm well aware of historical and recent conditions there, but just having an understanding and pursuing adventure and exploration, at least from my perspective, is a neat thing to do, and as a traveler. So
that's great. I'm loving all your answers. And they're making me remember a couple years ago, Afghanistan was definitely a place that people didn't think about traveling to. The only visions we saw of Afghanistan were of bombings and, destruction and, blood and gore and these horrible scenes. And all of a sudden, one film crew went out and they visited a town that hadn't been hit. They still had this really strong culture. They had their amazing, buildings that had been there for hundreds of years. And it was just such a wonderful, wonderful place to visit. And through them telling that story and sharing those scenes, and they created this beautiful video, and it went viral for a week. And I'll see if I can find it, and I'll share it here after our panel. But all of a sudden, the conversation changed. Everyone who watched that film was like, "Wow, I really want to go to Afghanistan now. I want to find this place. I want to have this experience." And all of a sudden, people that were always very much against visiting this country started to think differently and started to think, maybe I'm going to put this on my travel list.
Right. That's exactly right. And Afghanistan is one of those places where very few people understand and want to go, and probably for pretty good reason. But maybe if I can think of a quick historical analogy, let's say Vietnam or Cambodia. 25 years ago, there wasn't anywhere near the openness and acceptance to visiting those regions because of what happened during the war, but they gradually opened up. And today, I think Vietnam especially is a very sought after destination. And so conditions change, perceptions and realities change. And so again, a couple of points. One is it goes back to I think to really travel and experience it and enjoy it, reach out, but be informed, and do monitor, measure, assess, understand safety. And things do change, and at 1 year or 1 month or one point in time, historically maybe a lot different today and in the future, and there are ways to assess that, but that's a really neat story, and places will open up and places will close down from a, I mean this I'm framing this in sort of a safety perspective. That's just the way the world works, but to keep an open mind, just get out and book flights and travel to destinations and book hotels, and just get out as much as possible. I think that supports the tourism and the global ecosystem as much as possible, and it's also very enriching as a personal traveler.
And I think another option too is considering going with a travel agent who has packages. I went to a travel conference in DC, and there was a travel agent from Iran there. You hear on the news that, oh, don't go there, and all of this is going on, and here is someone that is selling these tours in Iran to have a very enriching experience. So maybe if travelers don't feel as comfortable on their own, that they can go to where they can have the adventure travel with maybe some internal security.
Sophia, can you repeat that really quick? I think we might have missed a little bit of that.
Oh no. Can you hear me now? I'll be really quick when I say it again.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, we can hear you now.
I heard nothing. I thought, oh no. What I had said was, I don't know if you had heard. Did you hear anything that I said by any chance?
Yes, I did.
Okay. I had mentioned going to a travel conference in DC, and there was a travel agent that was from Iran, and he was selling packages that were to explore Iran from the US. And Iran is a place here, I think, where you don't really think of going. You're kind of curious, but you're not really sure right now. And so if someone is a little reluctant to go to a place like that, there are options where you can go talk to a travel agent, and maybe you can have that level of security, knowing that someone has booked a certain place for you, and you have someone to call upon if you want to explore, but you also need a little moral support.
Yes, wonderful. And right. I think making sure to have a local contact is really important when you're going to a place, even if it isn't considered unstable at the time, but you feel uncomfortable, if it's such a different culture that you're really afraid of making a mistake. It's really great to have a local contact, have a local guide who knows the language and who knows the safe places and the not so safe places and the good places to take you, and best food, and I mean you're going to wind up having a good experience through their perspective. And so yeah, that is a really good way of kind of creating a safer atmosphere around yourself that you are more comfortable in.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Excellent. So I guess kind of getting into that, how do you guys make sure that you are as safe as possible when you're there? What are some specific things that you make sure you know about the place, and how do you make sure that that safety is as well taken care of as possible?
Sure. Well, I could happy to start with that. I think a lot of it is it goes back to what we were talking about before. It's research, it's diligence, having an understanding, preparing, consuming as much travel information as possible. I think there's a lot of kind of common sort of common sense, right? And adhering to the culture and understanding and appreciating norms and customs of the destination that you're going to, respecting those customs, and just using a lot of common sense. Does it make sense as a solo female traveler to go out well after dark in attire that may not be something that you would wear out at night. Of course not. So a lot of this is common sense, and in certain areas there are things that you may want to be concerned about, or not concerned, but just cognizant about. Perhaps there there may be a protest that could grow and become increasingly aggressive, and you may want to find that you may not want to be in the center of that. You may want to circumvent that. You may want to just be cautious, have situational awareness. But a lot of this is it's really just sort of common sense, and you're not going to walk around with a flashy, ostentatious watch or jewelry or certain personal items in areas where those may be somewhat of an economic anomaly, if you will. So I think blending in and having an understanding of again, sort of situational awareness, I think are very simple things to do to maintain a very high level of safety and comfort and really confidence when you're traveling to unstable or stable regions.
Yeah, all very good points. And a lot of what I started out doing with Papilia with my clients was providing them with a packing list that adhered to the weather, the style, their style, the culture, culture etiquette list, things that you just should be aware of, the norms, so they feel more norms, currency, things like that. So you feel safe when you're going to a place. And a lot of the advice I would provide is, don't wear flashy clothing. Let's blend into the norm of the country. Don't wear a lot of flashy jewelry. Don't carry a lot of cash with you. Don't make it obvious when you're fumbling around. Try to blend in as much as you can and understand the culture, respect the culture. Also, it's good to also pay attention to, again, when we come back to clothing, is new shoes. Some countries, they pick up on new shoes and they think, oh, automatically you must have something with you. So, just be aware of those things depending upon the culture. This is so those are some of the tips that I provide my clients. So they are aware of the norms, they're aware of the culture. They also know, maybe even picking up, we've talked about this before, picking up on some key phrases. So if you hear something that maybe you may be familiar with, just being able to communicate a little in that language, so you can feel comfortable and not out of place. And we talked about this in my previous in the previous Travel Fearlessly panel, is paying attention to gestures. And if you feel a tense situation, then your intuition is right. It is a tense situation. So don't just write it off as, oh, well, that must be nothing. I'm in a different country. And really, really paying attention.
Wonderful. That's all great. Thank you for sharing all of that. A couple of things that I would like to add from my own experiences, especially from a female solo travel perspective as well. If I do go out at night, I let the host know where I'm going and about when I would like to be back. That way, if something does happen, then, and this is the case for any place. If I even go to LA, yeah. I always let somebody know. And,
right.
And so, yeah, letting your host know, letting someone at the hotel know, hey, I'm staying in this room, I'm so-and-so, I'm planning on going here, and I would like to be back around this time. Please, I'll let you know when I'm back, but please be aware of that. Also, knowing how to call for help. If you need to call the local 911, their version of 911 emergency, know what those numbers are and know where the U.S. Embassy is in case you have to, handle something on those lines. And so that's been very helpful for me, is knowing all that in the back of my mind, just in case. And so that does give me more confidence to get out and to explore, because I do have that knowledge in the back of my mind.
All good
Completely
points.
agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. I also tend to keep a photocopy of my passport. So if I don't like to carry my passport around. But I also like to keep a photocopy in the U.S. or wherever your country is, and also carry another photocopy just in case.
Yes, yeah, I that and credit cards.
Right.
Just in case you get pickpocketed and you don't have your credit card anymore, you have a copy usually in your room. I mean, I keep it in my room in the safe box, or somewhere out of sight. And then again, one at home, so I can contact somebody and say, can you help me out?
Yeah.
Right.
Excellent.
Right.
My last question for you guys is, have you ever planned a trip and then canceled it because of something you heard or something that happened?
Sophia, you want to start on that?
I'm thinking about it. No. I think the only time, I can't say, it wasn't out of my wanting to do so. It was the company that I was with, and it was then they had to follow their security protocol, but I wanted to go.
Right.
But as I think, you can go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was trying to think too. I'm quite certain I've never canceled a trip due to some event or something that has happened at the last minute and changed my mind. There are ways to sort of protect yourself. There are a lot of great travel insurance providers that have all kinds of coverage, whether trip cancellation for a host of reasons, and so that can help. But you have to read those policies. But no, that's never happened to me, and maybe that's just been fortunate. But if as an example, I wouldn't have not gone to the UK or Manchester. I wouldn't have not gone to Paris. I wouldn't have not gone to Nairobi. I wouldn't have not gone to Brussels and Munich and countless other cities because of an event. Again, I think it's you can't. It's impossible. It's impossible to predict force majeure, right? You never know when there's going to be a hurricane or an earthquake or anything. Those are just events that can't be predicted, and including terrorist events. And so, look, would I have had second thoughts about going to West Africa and the the epicenter of health, or in a couple of years ago, Ebola? Of course, that's just common sense. But it's a really interesting question, Clara. No, I don't think that I'm pretty sure that's never happened, and hopefully it never will.
Agreed.
I agree. I can't. There was nothing that I've never canceled anything. I remember I was told a few times not to take a regional carrier because their aircraft was not safe. And this could be not smart on my part, but I did it anyway because I wanted to experience what that regional carrier was like. And I understand why now, but it still was a great experience. So, it could be something also to consider for travelers, if the regional carrier that they're on, if they may not feel like the aircraft is safe, then maybe find another way. But, also, again, be aware, weigh your options, and make your decisions accordingly. But it was a fun experience for me.
Yeah, that is definitely something to research. Yeah, I mean, make sure you know which carriers are taking you where.
Right.
Yeah, because you might decide to take somebody else or find a different way. I know we try to stay away from. There's a couple carriers out there, especially like just little puddle jumpers, you know, and they have a propensity of falling out of the sky.
Right.
Unfortunately. But great. So yeah, thank you guys so much for sharing. If you have anything else you would like to share, we can take the next couple minutes to kind of expand on anything. But I also want to remind viewers that if you do have questions, you can please send them in the chat window, or you can always tweet at us at ITM Summit 17, and we will make sure that we get your questions answered by Michael and Sophia and several other experts who are world travelers doing this pretty often.
Well, great. Well, Claire, thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure to hang out with you today. And Sophia, it was wonderful to hear your experiences, and I'd love to hear more about what you're doing. And if there's anyone out there that has any questions regarding travel, regarding safety, regarding what we're doing at GeoSure, please feel free to ping me. Under there are many different ways to get in touch with us. And when people think about safety, obviously it's about empowering, it's about inspiring, it's about engaging, it's about being a smart, informed traveler. And we're trying to do some neat, interesting, timely things in that regard. We do have free mobile products that are under constant upgrade and improvement, and we're very excited about some things that are happening. We also have some great resources on our website. But I love hearing from the travel community. Our goal is to just expand awareness and try to get as many people out traveling the world in a smart, informed fashion as possible. And I thank you very much again, Claire, for this opportunity. It's great to be on this panel.
Yeah, likewise, Claire. This has been amazing. And I just want to sum everything up by saying, be open-minded. If the place is risky, whatever your definition of risky is, be open-minded about it. Triangulate your information. At the end of the day, maybe if we go with your intuition. If you don't feel like it's the right thing at that moment, that's fine. But don't give up. And keep that on your bucket list. And if you want it to happen one day, it will happen. So again, like I'm excited about hearing from the travel community as well. A lot of what I do is a lot of cross-cultural communication type of trainings, coachings, to have companies and individuals be really comfortable in whatever setting they're going to, feel confident in negotiations. So again, having that awareness, understanding what they do, or understanding other countries, so they can, really maximize their experience. And I'm happy to answer any questions. This has been a fabulous experience. Thank you for the platform.
Wonderful. Thank you both so much. It was such an honor to have you here and to have this conversation and to really shed some light on the topic of traveling to places that are considered unstable, that are considered maybe more adventurous to travel to. But it was such an honor to have you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Claire, thank you so much. Sophia, thank you so much. And
likewise, Michael. I'll be in touch.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye. Take care. Thank you.
Sure.